Welcome once again to the Morning Paper Podcast. As always, I am the host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is my friend Tim Norcus. What's up, buddy?
Just watching the end of this game 7, man. It's what an incredible I wouldn't say an incredible series, but like incredible last like 2 or 3 games actually.
Well, I feel like we watch sports because we want to see amazing feats of athleticism, basically. Like guys raising their games to levels that you just can't really predict, right? We've seen it enough. You just don't know when a special moment is going to happen. And not so much in this game 7, but in game 6, we got that. Klay
Yeah,
Thompson hits 11 threes, 19 fourth quarter points. I mean, the Warriors, for all their 73 wins, for all of their records, for all of their greatness the last 2 seasons. I mean, they're down 8 going into the fourth. They're down 7 with about 5 minutes left in the game. And, I mean, the Warriors just turned it on. They did what champions do. Klay hit some alpha dog shots. Like the one where he comes off his screen and just turns and fires without looking at the rim. I mean, that's
yeah. Just even like watching this, like it's like
that.
it's the ultimate reality show, right? It's the ultimate
Yeah,
reality show because it's
absolutely. You have no idea what's going to
right, and especially when you get to like this part of the playoffs where like these are legitimate like title teams, not like Toronto versus Indiana in round one.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I mean, I think I emailed it or I have texted it, but it did feel like going into maybe not game 5, but like into game 6, it did feel like a little bit like nobody believes in us. Like, I mean, people believe in us, but like nobody really believes in us. But like these 3-1 series leads when you have two of the games at home, it
Hmm.
really just feels like you just have to win that road game, right?
Yeah,
Because like it was 3-1, but everyone expected them to win game 5, right?
right.
Everyone's expecting them to win game 5, and then if it gets to a game 7, everyone's expecting them to win game 7. So really, it's 3-1, but you just need to win one game. I mean, that's what it is.
Wait, it's three
Um,
one. Oh, go ahead. Keep going.
but maybe it's less the fact that it was 3-1 and more like, hey, you just lost by 40 something points in these two road games.
Hmm.
Like they were over by the middle of the second quarter.
Hmm.
And I mean, look, they did something that the Spurs couldn't do. They just hung around and hung around and hung around, and then I mean, it's kind of twofold, right? So like, obviously Thompson was great, but like they're getting stops on the other end. It's getting a little bit nervous, and I mean, was there any point tonight, like even in the first half, did you feel like Golden State was not going to win?
Um, I mean, you never know. Like when you go down 13 early, um, there's always a point there where it's like, are we going to get to like 16 and 18 and now you're in trouble, or are you going to keep it at that? So
Right.
there's always kind of a moment in the beginning, but once you get it to 6, you just had a sense that like coming out of the half, like Golden State's going to turn it on, and like how much is Oklahoma City going to have in the tank? Because some of these guys eventually, like the other guys that you need for and Roberson and Adam Waiters, like these guys, it's like you just feel like they're not going to be able to lift up Durant and Westbrook, and even Westbrook tonight, like he wasn't his best. Like he's going to
No.
run out of gas eventually. Like you just can't exert so much energy. So yeah, I mean the second half kind of went how I thought it would. Um, but to your point about going into like it's a 3-1 lead, yes. But like you said, like it really comes down to game 6. And this is how it was. I remember in '06 when the Lakers were going against the Suns, and the Lakers took the 3-1 lead on the Kobe buzzer beater. And okay, Game 5 is obviously a throwaway. Like you're going on the road, you expended all this energy to get up 3-1. So like Game 6 is the game. Like that's
Right.
the closeout game. Like that's essentially Game 7 for the Lakers.
Right.
And you know it ended much worse for the Lakers that day. I mean they were basically one rebound away from winning the series and they missed it. But like the point was, it's like that was their game. The Lakers knew it. The Suns knew it. The Suns knew they had to find a way to do it. And it's I feel like the Warriors, it's like they essentially like games they essentially played 2 Game 7s. You know,
Right. And I don't, I mean, I remember the series, but I don't remember like that Game 5 Lakers Suns. But I think even though here, like the Thunder lost Game 5, it was kind of a not back and forth. I mean, Golden State was in control, but like they could never really put them away until like late, late.
it was one of those
Um,
things where it's like, hey, like the Thunder hung around and no one expected them to win anyway. Like that's a good sign
right.
for them.
So yes, I think that even put more like we like them in Game 6, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but there was a couple moments, and you know, it's hard. You know, Westbrook and Durant certainly take obviously the lion's share of the blame and glory, win or lose. But you know, coming down the stretch here, Westbrook beats Klay Thompson off a dribble, kicks it back out to Roberson, who like he's not a great shooter, but at this point, like he's standing by himself. He's just standing by himself, and he
Mm-hmm.
passes up the three, right? And passes up the three, and he kicks it to like Dion Waiters in the corner, who's kind of covered, and he misses a shot, and it results in an offensive rebound. But it's more to the point, like if you want me to pass, and I'm passing to a wide open guy, and he's not going to shoot it, like why did I pass it in the first place?
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas on the other end, like even make or miss, it's like Draymond Green's shooting threes at the end of the game. Harrison Barnes was taking one. I mean, you know, it's not just like, hey, we're, you know, it's going to be ISO with Curry. Um, I mean, look, it's designed by Golden State to leave Roberson open, so it's not like they you know they can always live with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess it's more basically like a glaring thing in the rosters, right? Like, I mean, they're playing 4-on-5 offensively. Like, even with 2 of the 5 best players, like it makes it really hard. You know, I mean, they only
It
had
makes it really hard in an extended series.
right, especially against a good defensive team.
Right, because
Um,
eventually the Warriors are going to come around, and the thing is, and I wrote this in an email, is what saved the Warriors was the format. Because if Game 5 was played in Oklahoma City, like, is this series over? Like, do the Thunder win in 5? I feel like
um,
they might have.
I mean, look, like now knowing that they lost in 7, like sure, like it's obviously better than what would have happened now. Um, but
Sent this email after Game 5, though. I mean, like,
right,
I might have sent it before Game 5. Like, you don't. It's like the Lakers in '04 against the Pistons. Like everyone was comparing the series to that because the Warriors looked so bad, and it's like the Lakers never had a chance to go home for Game 5 and kind of figure it out because, like we said, like in Game 5, the Thunder were hanging in there, on the road,
right.
so
Yeah,
they
they kind
still
of
had that confidence.
yeah, they trailed most of the game, but like, you know, they were always kind of in it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean it could be a format thing, I guess. But
No, I mean
um
this is the way it's always been. I'm just saying, like,
right.
it's the little things like that kind of like, because we're crushing the Thunder for how their team was put together, but like those backups were able to put together a good enough performance to have the defending champions like on the ropes. I mean, they were in big trouble and they were almost
Right.
good enough, but like a little thing like the way the playoffs are put together, or like
Right.
like some situation where they had to play the Spurs and the Warriors, and the goofball Cavs get to play the Raptors. You
I
know,
think and I'd have to look at the box scores, but like in games 3 and 4, you know, the Thunder got contributions from guys who like I mean, I guess if you're Golden State, you figure like they can't do that 4 out of 7 times.
Right.
right? So like they're not going to get 17 or 19 points from Roberson. And like at some point, like the percentages, like if you're a 30% shooter, like you might not be a 30% shooter like every single game, but like hopefully over the course of 7 games, it's going to get down there. But um, I mean, I guess we all think like looking forward or kind of putting a wrap on Oklahoma City. Like Westbrook's got one more year. Um, Westbrook's got one more year. Durant's a free agent. Now, after they lost game 1 by like 35 to San Antonio, I kind of thought like, if this series doesn't go great and they're not competitive, like he might leave.
Mm-hmm.
But like he's not leaving for basically what's going to be 1 year, right?
No.
Because like where's he going to go?
Unless they traded him.
Like a sign and trade, like we know that we're not going to be able to. But even
Yeah.
then, like, but who's gonna agree to take Durant for 1 year for all the stuff they'd have to give up
The Lakers would.
for 1 year?
Well, I think they would assume that they can snatch him up later, especially when Westbrook would come available the next year.
Right, but I mean, like you can't guarantee that, right? Like you can't guarantee that.
I still think the Lakers would do it, but
right. I mean, they'll run it back. I don't know the ins and outs of their roster as far as like free agents, but like, I mean, obviously
they'll definitely run it back.
Right, like obviously, I mean, Steven Adams has kind of been like the kind of coming out player. And so you figure like he's gonna get better because he's only 22, so it's not like he's plateaued. Like he's gonna be a better player. Maybe Enes Kanter's better. But I think the one thing, like if you're Oklahoma City, like you can't be like, look, like we were right there, and like let's just run it back with the same group because like there still are major holes, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, they still finished, with 55 wins, and
right,
they were 12
wins.
games. They were 12 games behind the Spurs, 18 games behind the Warriors. Like at the end of the day, like that's not. I mean, you're not close. I mean, you're close in the sense like you caught fire in the playoffs, and that's great, but you're not close in the sense that you weren't even close to them in the regular season.
Right.
If you want to be the best team, you don't want to be a team that can get hot in the playoffs.
Right, exactly. And I know it's kind of cliche to say like the regular season doesn't matter, but like when you're playing these game 7s on the road, it would probably be pretty nice to be playing them at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
I mean, they were about to if they had won tonight, they would have been on the road against Cleveland also.
Yeah, by one game. Game.
So you can't just you're fourth in the NBA in record.
Right.
That's not so it's not like, oh, we were right there. It's like, well, no. Like the fourth best NBA team, just record wise, usually isn't considered to be right there. Like you need to add pieces. Now, how can you?
Well, right. So it kind of felt like, I mean, before the season, I thought there were like 4 teams that could win it all, right? Like I thought it was going to be San Antonio, Golden State, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City. But then at the start of the playoffs, it was kind of like, it was weird. Like you still had Golden State, San Antonio, and Cleveland, but then you kind of had OKC in a like group by itself, right? Because like they're not, I didn't think they were quite in that top 3, but they're still light years ahead of everybody else, right? Like the gap between them and the really elite teams is much smaller than the gap between them and Clippers, Toronto, Portland, Atlanta. I mean, like those teams really aren't winning titles. I mean, they're really not winning titles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess you can expect some improvements from Steven Adams, certainly Billy Donovan. I mean, like I was super critical of him, but like, look, it's still his first year, right? So like, it looks like he figured some things out. But look, like you have two of the best 5 players in the NBA.
Well,
So
why? Let's see. This is the thing that I don't really get is like Billy Donovan gets so much credit now for things when like Scotty Brooks got so much criticism. I mean, like, what did he really do different?
what did
What did Billy Donovan do different? Like, he's not. What did he do?
Well, for the last like 5 or 6 years, they never really realized, like they'd always sit Durant and Westbrook at the same time, right? I mean, it seems like such a basic thing. Like, yeah, you have both these guys. Like, can't you figure out how to always have at least one on the floor? It's like, well, Scott Brooks never did, ever. And so, like, that was a major issue.
Never figured it out.
Yeah, like he never figured out how to do that. I mean, it's hard to compare because they have different rosters now, but like
I just
figuring
don't
out.
think. I just don't think it's different. Like,
I
I'm
mean,
not.
look,
I'm
like
not ready to give Billy Donovan a bunch of credit. I mean, maybe he deserves some, but
I mean, look, figuring out these like lineup combinations that basically like swung the San Antonio series, like I don't know. I mean, that's not really an accident. I mean,
maybe.
I'm not saying like, hey, if we need to drop a play, like he's the coach I want, but like, I mean, there's so many other things that go into it. You know what I mean?
Maybe. I don't know. I just.
So,
I'm not really ready to give him a ton of credit.
well, I mean, look, like if you're not going to give him credit, then it's like, look, I mean, I don't know. He beat Greg Popovich in 6 games,
He did.
right?
This is
So,
true.
I mean, he lost to Golden State. They were up 3-1, but like, at the end of the day, they lost in 7 to a better team with a better roster and
I mean,
probably a
what do you
better
think
coach.
of? I mean, I guess like, what do you think of Doc Rivers? Like, do you think he's a good coach?
I don't.
I mean, he beat Greg Popovich. Eric Spoelstra beat Greg Popovich. Of course, it's more like LeBron James beat Greg Popovich. But
Yeah, but like I mean, like those years they didn't win like 60 whatever games, right? So
true
like
point.
like last year when the Clippers beat him, I think that the Clippers were like a 3 seed and San Antonio was like a 6 seed. Um, and actually Scott,
I don't want to get bogged down into whether Billy Donovan's a good coach. I don't care.
right?
Maybe he
But
is.
I'm just saying, like I think at this point, like it's reasonable to like see at least some improvement there, like just 1 year in.
I mean, they definitely did more than people thought. I mean, that's objectively
Right,
true.
right. I mean, look, like they played
They played a 67 win team and won, and they
right,
played a
they played
73 win team and were up 3-1.
right, they played 13 games against those teams and they went 7-6
Right. Like,
basically.
I'm not gonna give him like a ton of credit, but like it's also not his fault.
No, that's true. That's true.
Right.
So you want to go like Eastern Conference Finals or just like whatever and go
I
straight to the
guess.
finals?
Well, I mean, what is there to talk about? The Cavs did exactly what we talked about last week. I mean, they just blew them away. I mean, the Raptors are
Well,
just not. They're not playing in the same. I feel like they're not playing in the same league as the two teams we just saw.
right. So and like it's been like this in the Eastern Conference for a couple of years. Like somebody always has to make the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron, right?
Yeah.
So like you can sit there and think like, oh, like we're one of the 4 best teams. It's like, well, you're not one of the 4 best teams. You're just like one of the 4 remaining teams.
Right. And like I don't mean to troll Justin on this or anything, but part of this, like, LeBron wasn't on the Cavs when he was doing some of this, but like he made 6 straight finals, which is good. I mean, there's full credit. I mean, making the NBA finals is hard, but like you do it in the East. I mean,
I mean,
what
look, like I even to play like the contrarian, like it's hard to say that like those teams are good. I mean, I guess some of it is sort of bad luck because I do think those Indiana teams that like Miami played, I thought they were really good, right? I thought
they
those
were
teams were
definitely
pretty good,
playing well. I mean, they're definitely playing well.
right? Like I thought those teams were good, but the problem, I mean, it's kind of like a twofold problem. So like Paul George gets hurt, right? And so like that kind of sets them back a couple seasons.
Right.
And now it's like, well, Frank Vogel's gone or whatever. But like, when you have these like established like periods of dominance, like, and to go back to the Bulls in '96 or whatever, like when they were beating all those teams every year in the Eastern Conference, like, I mean, if you're beating, if none of those teams can get through, then is it easy to say like, well, it wasn't a very good conference, right? Like the Knicks were never very good, or the Pacers weren't ever very good back then. But like, yeah, they kind of were. And I'm not saying
Yeah,
Toronto
but like
was.
I think that like what the class of the NBA is. Just I mean, conference wise, like it's been the West for how long now? Since
I
Jordan
would
left
say,
in '98,
I mean,
maybe
look,
even
like,
longer.
I think it's hard to go through it like year by year because it's like, how do you, like, are you just going by like conference, like overall conference record, or are you saying like these are like the 3 or 4 best teams? Because like the teams that missed the playoffs in the East would have made the playoffs in the West this year, but it doesn't mean they're a better conference, right?
But like the
Um,
top 4 teams, I
I
mean,
think, I mean, look, like
3 of
without
them
like
are in the West.
right, without like going back and like memorizing all the standings, like I thought when like the Celtics, Magic, and Cavs, like kind of like in those mid to late 2000s, like I thought that's pretty strong.
Yeah, I guess.
Those were good. Those were pretty good teams.
But then that's what. But see, the thing is though, is like that's when the East was strong was when LeBron was not making the finals.
I mean, he did in 07 with the Pistons, or was it 07?
It was, but then that was just the Pistons. Like the Celtics weren't good then, the Magic weren't good then. Like
I mean,
when
I
the East
understand,
got strong,
right? And
they started missing the playoffs.
but like now we're looking at like 4 years in a row in the West where it's only been 2 teams, right? So it's like, is Oklahoma City really good? I mean, like, because what you're saying is like, oh, well, like Cleveland couldn't have been that good because they weren't making the finals. It's like, well, I mean, now we're at 4 years in a row with only the Spurs or Warriors.
I don't know.
Yeah, like, look, like the West is certainly better. The West is certainly better. I do think the gap is closing a little bit, just because like the middle of the East is certainly better. Like the bottom of the Western Conference playoffs was as bad as it's been in 10 years, right?
Right.
Like between like Memphis and even Portland and Houston, like those are miserable teams. But like the fact that Indiana could beat Houston or whatever, like that doesn't make the East better. But I do think the gap is closing a little.
I mean, it makes it hard. It makes it hard, and it helps my argument in that, like, in the finals, he's 2-4.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, like it's 2-4, but for me, like that 07 is just like I feel bad even counting it because it's like,
okay, he's 2-3 then.
right, but you know what I mean? Like somehow like getting there and losing might be even worse than like not getting there at all. But yeah, I mean 5 in a row or 2-3 in the last 5, especially that first one that they lost to Dallas. You know what I mean? Like that's
not a good one.
that's got to be a win, because like even like last year, and we'll touch on this, but like last year it's like, well, the team that you got to the finals with isn't the team that you played in the finals with. You know what I mean? So,
but you don't even like them.
I don't.
You liked them better last year.
Well,
against the Warriors anyway.
Against the Warriors, yeah, against the Warriors. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but and I think it's actually like big for the Warriors too, because like if they do lose this year, then it does make it seem like, man, maybe last year would have been different. But I mean, just getting to 6 straight finals, even with the East being down, that's so much basketball.
Oh no, it's a great physical feat. Like you just from a, he's got to play a ton of more games than everyone else, and he's such an integral part. I mean, this is why there's such a bad regular season teams. Is like he just can't he can't be putting forth that much effort all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's just like it's not like he went through this amazing gauntlet. I mean, I saw before, like, they were minus like 1,400 before the series started.
Right. I will say this, like, and it's like, obviously Oklahoma City is good, but like Golden State didn't go through a gauntlet either, right? Like, they beat Oklahoma City. Like, I think Toronto definitely beats Portland or Houston, right? Like, those teams or whatever. So, like, yeah, the Warriors had a tougher road, but like, it was one series. It was one series tougher. Right?
I mean, one series is one series.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen the schedule yet, but like, they only play, like, they have 2 days off in between every game except one time. So they play game one's Thursday, then they play Sunday. So I mean, I don't know how much something like this takes out of you. Like, they obviously don't have to travel, but like, there's just so much rest in the NBA Finals.
Well, the good news Steph hasn't played that many games at this point, so.
Right, just because he missed the time.
Right. So yeah. Before we get into the finals, I was thinking this weekend, because the Champions League was on Saturday.
Yeah.
And I feel like Cristiano Ronaldo and LeBron are kind of similar characters.
Huh.
Like, juxtaposed against like Messi and Steph Curry, for example. Because they're both like physical specimens. They're both really, really good, but their greatness is somewhat offset by people's opinions of them kind of off the field or like while they're playing.
Right.
And I kind of feel like it takes away, like, they don't get as much credit as they should because people don't really like them.
Well, I mean, there's, and I kind of agree and I kind of don't, because like, there was certainly a period for a few years, like before these last year and a half or whatever with Curry, that like LeBron was the unquestioned best player in the world for like 3 or 4 years in a row, right?
Yeah.
But like with Cristiano Ronaldo, he's never really had that, right? It's always been Messi. I think he won one like player of the year, and even that was like, man, Messi probably got robbed. So he's always kind of lived in his shadow. And like, Barcelona's certainly been the better club and won more trophies and been better head to head.
Yeah.
But I mean,
just from just the character standpoint, like, they're both so physically imposing.
Right. And I mean, that's probably the best comparison, because like, it's weird because like, you think of Steph Curry as being super small, but he's like 6'2" or 6'3". Like, Messi is small. Like, Messi is really small. He's 5'7", I think. Like, that's small.
Oh, he's tiny, for sure. But then like, you don't really like Steph Curry is, by NBA standards, he's a pretty frail dude.
Right.
Like, you wouldn't suspect someone that plays the way that he plays would be the only unanimous MVP in the history of the NBA.
Right.
And you wouldn't suspect someone like Messi would be, eventually the greatest soccer player of all time.
Right.
So that's kind of, I don't know. I just like, when you like, like when I saw Ronaldo, and like, only in soccer, by the way, can you do nothing for 120 minutes of field action and then be the hero because you happen to make the last penalty kick and you can run and take your shirt off. Like that, like taking the shirt off, like that is such a Ronaldo thing to do. It's like, you've done nothing, and you score a goal and you run and take your shirt off.
I can tell you one thing: if I had a body like that, I would never even wear a shirt. Like, they would just have to like spray paint the number on me.
But like, that's the thing. It's like, a lot of these guys have great bodies. Like, keep your shirt on, bro. Keep your shirt on.
Right. Yeah, I always feel, and because this is actually like the second time recently where they've played in the final. I don't know why. I feel like it's so anticlimactic when like two clubs from the same country play.
It's
Because like,
terrible.
well, because
I
like
hate it.
I've already seen this. Like I've already seen them play a
Well,
bunch
not
of
just the
times.
same country, like the same league.
Well, right. I mean, well, it's going to be the same
Well, like,
league
but
because they're from the same
maybe
country.
not everyone listening understands how like, because Amy doesn't know how the Champions League works.
Oh, okay. But like, I just feel like in Champions League, like you don't get like I want these like Titanic matchups between like Italy and Spain or
Right.
England and Germany or whatever. You know what I mean? Not like oh, this is like a Madrid, not just country. Like it's a city match. Like it's Madrid versus Madrid, and they're just happen to be playing it in Milan.
And not just
Um,
that, but then both of these teams lost to Barcelona for the league title.
the league title, and then Barcelona also won the Copa del Rey.
Right. So
Yeah,
it kind of lessens it because it's like, yeah, like this is a big deal, but you just happen to win this tournament.
right,
And Barcelona won the season long tournament and the other tournament that they played.
right. Um,
So that's what kind of makes it lesser. I totally agree with that.
yeah, I always just feel like so unfulfilled on these like penalty kicks.
It's the worst.
Um, well, and part of it too is like I know the argument against is like, well, like these teams could go forever and like no one would score. It's like, first of all, they play the way they play because they know penalty kicks are coming up, right? Like if you
Right.
knew that someone would have to score, then
They'd
like
play different.
right, like you wouldn't just be like, look, we just need to defend and maybe we can beat them in penalties. It's like, no, if you have to score, that changes exactly how you play. Um, and I don't know if it was the World Cup, like a couple World Cups ago. It was better because they went like with the 30-minute extra time where it's not golden goal, and then they went another 30 minutes where it is golden goal, and then so after that, then they went to penalties. So like, yeah, that's 60 more minutes. And I think they only had one match that actually went to penalties, which is like, I'm fine with that because 60 minutes, like, yeah, like I get that you can't be out there like how it is in hockey. You know what I mean? Especially because like by that time you can't sub usually anymore. But yeah, I mean, the keeper for Madrid kept diving the same way, and it was like the wrong way every time. I don't under
Yeah.
that bothered me too, I guess.
I don't know. Amy and I were watching, and as soon as extra time ended, we were planning to walk over to my parents, and as soon as it ended, I was like, let's go. I don't even care. Like it doesn't even matter. Like the teams, they didn't figure it out. They're gonna do some flip of the coin thing to figure out who the champion is. I'm not interested. Let's move
Right,
on.
right.
And we'll get back to the NBA in a second, but I have to talk about this because you are the ultimate replay guy. You want everything that takes place in any sporting event to be available to replay.
Well, it's not just replay, but like if you could get it right the first time with technology, then that's even better.
Even better. So, okay. So the game ends 1-1. And the goal that Real Madrid scored,
It was offsides.
the player was offsides.
It was offsides.
Pretty clearly offsides, actually.
Pretty clearly, yes.
Um, if there's only going to be one goal, then that goal needs to be kosher. It needs to
Yeah.
be legit. Most of the arguments against replay is that it slows down the game. It takes too long. It disrupts the flow. These games are already long enough. If a goal is scored, the game is stopping anyway. So while
Right.
they run around and celebrate with each other, just look at it. I mean, the first thing that happens is they show us a replay and they do the little line with the laser and they show us like 3 angles of it and you can see the guy's clearly offsides. And then they cut back and the players are still celebrating. Just look at it, say, no, he's offsides, no goal, started over from here. Like there's one goal scored by that team in the whole game. It's kind of important to get it right.
Yeah. And the thing with soccer is like it's the quickest like professional sport, right? So like in a normal game that's not going to go to extra time or penalties, like it's going to be over in like an hour and 55 minutes, right?
Right.
So that's not a concern.
Stopping the game is not a concern because the game is
Stopping the game's not
stopping
a
anyway.
concern. But you know what's funny and what kills me is it came out, and I think it was through FIFA a couple years ago, is that they kind of direct the linesmen to err on the side of like for the offense, like err on that side. It's like no, why err at all? Like why err at all?
Yeah.
Like we have like judging those things are extremely hard because as the linesman, you have to see exactly when the ball's kicked and exactly where all the players are at the exact same moment.
Right.
Like it's super difficult, right? And so like it's kind of the same thing with the NBA. Like I don't care if I generally don't really care if they get it right initially, if you can review it, because like these things are extremely tough. Like how can a guy standing on the side of the field 40 yards away be able to kind of see all these things at the same time? Like it's almost impossible.
He has to see the kick and the movement at the same
Right.
time
Like these are all basically like best guesses, right? Like they're
while
best
staying
guesses.
even with the last defender.
Correct.
So he's moving also. It's not like he's stationary.
Yeah. So, I mean, this technology is there. And the only thing I can think is, and I've never lived abroad, but like, since they don't have like major other sports like we do, like we talk about it for every sport. Like, so like replay is going on year round for us, right? Like year round. Maybe they just kind of live with it. I don't understand it because like in soccer, it's even easier than anything else because there's way less plays to review, right? Because there's less
Yeah.
scoring plays. So yeah, I mean it's such a big deal. Like that was 50% of all the goals scored,
Right.
and it was offsides.
And it's
And you could
offside.
and you could see it right away. Like there are some because like generally what happens is like one player's running one way and another player's running the other way. And they're trying to catch him offsides. And so like depending on which way the guy's leaning and which way his body's tilted, like even after replay, it's like I don't know, it's super close, but like this one was just like first replay, like nope, he's offsides. Like it right away.
There needs to be just a ton of reviews in soccer. I mean, for everything that's called. So like every PK that's called needs to be reviewed.
Right. Well, I mean, look,
Every
it comes back to this, right? So like in an NBA game, like an NBA court is like I don't know how many NBA courts could fit on a soccer field. Maybe like maybe like 6 or 7, maybe 6.
right.
Maybe more. But they have 3 officials capable of all calling fouls or whatever, like with 10 players playing. In soccer, they have one official who's in charge of making all the calls on a thing that's 7 times as big and watching 22 players.
I mean, if he's 15 feet away,
that seems
well.
obvious. Like you just don't have enough. I mean, look, like, and he can communicate with the linesman, but ultimately, like, it's his call. It's not the linesman's call.
Right.
It's always his call.
Right.
So, I mean, they've added like a goal line official, and they do have some goal line technology that they've added as far as like
if the ball goes over, they can tell now.
Right, and that all went back to a World Cup goal that I think it was Frank Lampard scored against Germany, and he hit it off the crossbar and went straight down. And the way the ball was spinning, it basically went straight down and kind of came out. But where it bounced, it was in the goal. You could see
it's like 4 feet in the goal. I mean, it really wasn't that close.
Right, but like it's a long shot, so like the ref's not anywhere near the goal.
No,
like you can't see anything.
And it's a long shot, so the linesman is even with the last defender, so he's not anywhere close to being near the end line.
So I guess what they need is like something like, and like that's what kind of brought about the goal line technology, is they need something like, yeah, the Champions League final is ultra important. It's super important, but it's not anywhere near a World Cup. It's not anywhere near a World Cup. So maybe that's what they need, is some sort of shenanigans going on in the World Cup.
I guess. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, soccer is a bigger sport worldwide than anything we have here. So, I mean, the idea that people don't really care is, that doesn't make sense.
It's not that they don't care. They certainly care. It's more like they might not know what they're missing.
I see.
Like they might not know like what it could be like. like what replay's like. Because like I said, like they have the shortest games. So like what we're concerned with in baseball, like man, it's already a long game and it's not timed and it could take forever. It's like that's not a concern in soccer, and people
Yeah.
still don't even really realize that.
Yeah.
So,
All right, let's get back to the finals of the NBA finals, which start on Thursday. I know you hate Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. So let's talk about why. I mean, they can't defend. That's basically the basis of the whole
right.
thing.
Okay. Actually, like Kyrie Irving's a bad defender, right? He's just generally a bad defender against everyone. I
Right.
don't think that Kevin Love's a bad defender, but like this is just a bad matchup for him, right? So
Right.
like against a lot of teams, like Kevin Love is definitely an adequate defender. He definitely is. But I mean, I know it's easy and kind of cliche to say like it's just a lot of like effort, like defending is effort. And I guess like kind of like in old school basketball, like when you're defending guys in the post and kind of like, you know, you don't have all this kind of screen action that Golden State was, like, yeah, maybe that makes more sense. But like just putting an athletic guy out there, like even Russell Westbrook, the last 2 games, like he was awful, like in switches, right?
Yeah.
And some of it's mental, some of it's hustle, some of it's just like kind of losing track. But like just being a try hard guy like isn't good enough anymore because no one tries harder than Russell Westbrook, really.
Right.
So I just think like when you look at Golden State and like when they lose games, it's generally not like because somebody outscored them, right? Like, yeah, Portland scored a bunch of points, but it's not like Portland won when they won was like 135, 130. It's like, no, they held them to like 105. And a lot of that was like garbage time. So I feel like if you're going to beat them, like you need to figure out how to beat them like 108, 105 or 108, 104.
Right.
Or even lower than that. So like, yeah, of course, if you're starting a team, you'd want Kyrie Irving over Dellavedova. And that look, like when I say this, it's not to say like Kyrie Irving shouldn't play at all, because obviously that's dumb.
No, he has to play. What you're saying is it's just like the way that their team is constructed is difficult against a team like the Warriors, basically.
Right, and it was kind of funny. Like you saw a glimpse, and I kind of spaced on whether it was game 3 or game 4. It was one of the games that he was actually shooting pretty well against the Raptors. But like, it's like, oh, Kyrie Irving's got 27. It's like, yeah, but like they've given up like 90 points in 3 quarters. So like, not to say like every basket's on him, but like he was on the floor. Like, look, like he was on the floor. And then the minute Dellavedova comes in, it's like they're starting to get stops. I mean, like he can score. Like he's always been able to score, but like, what good is scoring 27 if you give up 35?
Right.
So the Love thing, I think it's more like it compounds the problem. Like if it was Dellavedova with Love, I would feel like a little bit okay about it because you can kind of, I mean, you don't really have somebody to hide on Golden State, but like they're not trying to run a bunch of stuff for like Iguodala and Harrison Barnes, right? So like there are places for him to hide. Whereas with Irving, it's like nope, every single time down the floor, like he's going to be put in compromising situations. So,
I mean, Cleveland isn't like, well, I was just kind of ripping on the East, like because of LeBron, like they're not an easy out. You know what I mean? Like it's not like because we were talking about with the Lakers, like getting like for the Lakers in 2000 on their three-peat and then their back-to-back titles, like getting through the West was always kind of the hard part, or at least in the first three-peat, which is why like it was always kind of tough for Kobe because when they would get through the West, I mean he would have some just incredible performances in the West playoffs, and then they would get to the East. And it's like they come up against some trash team, and it's like, okay, like the Pacers with Rick Smith, or the Sixers with old Dikembe and the Nets with, who Aaron Williams or something, or what's his name, Todd McCullough. Like, come on, like they can't deal with him. So it's like Shaq would always just destroy those teams because they were just nothing. Like getting through the West for the Warriors, and like you said, this year wasn't that difficult. It was made hard because Curry was hurt for a good portion of it, but it's like having to face LeBron now after a series that you just played. I don't know. I feel like that's difficult because LeBron is just resting and he needs it. Like maybe the Cavs themselves, like maybe they're a little rusty or whatever, but LeBron, he definitely needs all the rest he can get. And I don't know. It's just like, it's so funny because he is 2-4 in the finals. It just feels so weird to feel like he's an underdog. It's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like, I agree. And it's really going to be hard. It's really going to be hard for Cleveland to win if LeBron isn't by far and away the best player in the series. Like, would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, he was last year and they lost.
But like what Golden State has the advantage of is like they can take one of their like secondary offensive weapons, who's like a really good defender in Iguodala, and like he generally did a pretty good job on LeBron last year.
He absolutely did.
So like I don't know what they're really going to do with like Kyrie, because like Kyrie's a little bit different in Russell Westbrook in the sense that like I don't know that Clay is quick enough for that, right? But at the same time, for Kyrie, but at the same time, like I don't know what Cleveland's going to do, because like, are you going to have Kyrie guard Steph Curry? Because that's going to take a lot of energy. I mean, Cleveland had success last year going big. I mean, obviously, they're not going to do that this year just because like they didn't put this roster together to try and play big, right?
Right.
Like they're not coming out with Mozgov and Tristan Thompson at the same time. Like Mozgov's almost like a DNP coach's decision at this point.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess you'll probably see a lot of like Channing Frye and Kevin Love and J.R. Smith and.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll see a ton of Channing Frye. I mean, he's playing great.
He really is.
Although, like, I feel like the layoff. See, this is where the layoff might hurt, because a guy like him, like, you want to stay in kind of a rhythm. I mean, it might not, but I wouldn't want it.
Well, I mean, getting back to like the East, it's just so hard to judge like what Cleveland's done, because it's like what they're about to see. Like they haven't played a team like this in like months since the last time they played like a Western power, right?
Right.
Now and like now they're starting on the road. It'll kind of be interesting to see, especially kind of more like for Kyrie and Love, because like they do need those guys to play well in order to win. But like, I know Kyrie played game 1 last year, but for the most part, like these guys have never really been to this spot where like, how are they going to prepare for game 2 after they lost game 1, or how are they going to prepare for game 3 if they're down 0-2?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, these guys didn't have any issues last year when they were in the playoffs, and like when they lost game 1, Kyrie didn't come back in game 2. So like, still kind of like, you know, even when they were tied 2-2 and they were going home with Toronto, like, I mean, nobody really thought it was still even a series, right? Like everybody thought like Cleveland was going to win, but like now it's like, man, at any point, like maybe if the Cleveland was up 3-0, you would like them, but like even if the Warriors are down 3-1, it's still like, man, it's still the Warriors. They still won 73 games.
It's still the
like,
Warriors.
It's just pressure that those guys have never been in. Like LeBron's been in it, but like those guys have never been in it.
I mean, they've like they just have the Warriors have the ultimate puncher's chance.
Right.
Like in game 6 against the Thunder. They made 36 shots, 21 were threes.
They made 1 2-point field goal outside the paint.
I mean, they just have the ultimate, and and Clay and Curry combined for 17, and tonight they combined for 13. And that's not even like, you didn't even think that that's like a great game. That's just the way that they play.
Well, right, because like they basically combined for 13, but a lot of that was like after the first quarter and a half. Like they scored 96 points. They had 22 with like 5:50 to go in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like, and also just one thing that kind of works against the Cavs is, I feel like last year at this time Clay wasn't playing as well as he is right now.
No, and neither is Steph, right?
Neither is Steph what?
Well, like last year he was the MVP, but like this year he was like the scoring champ, the MVP, unanimous. Like same. I mean, I guess obviously the Warriors are better. They won 73 games. But like same with Draymond, right? Like Draymond wasn't the guy.
Well, but I mean, like I don't remember Klay Thompson scoring 41 points in a huge playoff game for them.
Right. No. I see what you're saying. But yeah,
I mean, that is like
they're both different teams, obviously. Like they're both different teams than last year.
Right. I just feel like the thing with Clay is, I mean, just that struck me so much, is that he was taking shots that you expect the MVP to take, and he's taking them with complete confidence, like the 28-footer at the top of the key. Like, what second fiddle takes that shot in that spot?
Right.
And he takes them with complete confidence. Like, that is, like, we now have a two-headed, like, monster. It's like we have to worry about Clay exactly the same as Steph.
Yeah. Actually, I would even say almost more, in the sense that, like, it's easy to worry about Steph because he has the ball so much.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, all the defenders are going to be watching him, but like you have to worry about Clay because it's much harder to guard the guy off of the ball because he doesn't have the ball.
Right.
Whereas like Steph always has the ball. So I mean, look, yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I mean, do you want to make predictions or what?
Sure, yeah.
I'll take the Warriors in 6 again.
I'm gonna say Warriors in 6 too.
I think it'll go. I think they'll split.
Is it still 2-3-2 or is it 2-2-1-1-1?
It's 2-2-1-1-1. It's been like that for the last like 3 or 4 years.
Okay, yeah.
I think they'll split in Golden State. I think they'll split in Cleveland. I mean, it's just basically like last year. Yeah. Last year it just seemed more because it was like the Cavs are up 2-1, but they still split in Golden State, split in Cleveland, and then the Warriors will win Game 5 and Game 6. Warriors win Game 5 and Game 6. So, yeah, I mean, like, look, when I talk about like Kyrie and Kevin Love, it's not like, look, like if you have them out there, you're going to lose by 20 and you're going to get swept. Like, there certainly are benefits to them being out there. And you saw it against some of these other teams. Like, if these guys are shooting the ball well, then yeah, then like almost like the defense might not even matter. And like, over the course of a series, like they're probably going to have games where, like, I mean, I don't know if they're going to make 25 threes, but they're going to, as a group, like they're going to make like 16, 17 threes. But ultimately, like, I just don't know that, like, they're going to be good enough defensively. Because, like, you look at these, like, I'm watching these highlights here, like, it's all on, like, the Warriors offense and what they're doing. It's like, they just held Oklahoma City to 88. Like, that's why they won. They held them to 88.
Yeah.
Like, if you would have thought before the game that, like, oh, the Warriors are going to score 96 tonight. Like you'd probably think, man, they're going to lose. It's like, no, they won by 8.
Not that they're going to lose, but they're not playing well.
Right. It's like, no, they won because like they held them to 88. Like I don't know that when you play Kyrie and Kevin Love, like you can't win like that. Like you can only win when you're playing well offensively
Mm-hmm.
because you're never going to be good enough defensively. Um, and I guess the Warriors are a little bit underrated like that. Like I was talking to someone this week about it, like, and maybe it was because of the whole Russell Westbrook thing, and they asked about Curry's defense. It seemed like Curry went from like an underrated defender to then maybe being an overrated defender, and then now he's back to being like an underrated defender again.
Right.
Right? Like, man, they were really good defensively, and he's pretty good. And then it's like, well, he's not very good. It's like Klay Thompson does all this, and now it's like, well, like, yes, Klay Thompson's a very good defender, but like that doesn't mean that like Steph Curry's a liability. Um, but you know, when you have a guy that shoots like that, like no, even if he was a really good defender, it's like no, I want them to conserve energy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, why would I have Harrison Barnes guard Andre Roberson? Like, he doesn't need to conserve energy.
Right.
So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'll do, and I think it's going to be really entertaining. I mean,
It should
it'll
be. I mean, both teams want to shoot a ton of threes, so.
right. Like, I do think like even when it's tied 2-2, like, I mean, obviously I'll still stick with my prediction, but like it'll still feel like this is in doubt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even maybe once it's up 3-2, you might feel like, all right, well, like Cleveland's going to hold court at home, and then we'll have a game 7. But um, yeah, I can't believe it's going to take so long to play these games.
I mean, that's the NBA Finals. I mean, they want the Thursday and they want the Sunday.
Right. Well, they really don't want Fridays or Saturdays, which then makes it like really hard.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting. I mean, if the Warriors win, you got to feel like they're going up there with some of the best teams ever, right?
Um, I mean, you know how I feel.
I know how you feel.
I mean,
I
look,
know how you
like
feel.
to compare them like as if they were playing as silly, but like just looking at the accomplishment, like 67 wins, a title, 73 wins, a title. Like, yeah, I mean, nobody's ever won 73 games, so like 73 wins and a title has never been done.
Mm-hmm.
I think like, I mean, just back to back, like 67 and then 73. Like, I think that's one more than what the Bulls did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like, it doesn't feel like a dynasty yet because I guess it's only 2 years,
Right.
right? So, like, maybe that means they have to win one more in the 2 years following. Because I think if you win like 3 out of 4, that would be more like a dynasty sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I feel like it needs to be at least to get to at least 3,
Right. Right.
and then. All right. Well, do you wanna touch on the Dodgers really quick?
Um.
Clayton Kershaw seems pretty good. I saw something on ESPN that he might have had the best month ever.
You know,
Like really, that's happening? I didn't know that.
so here's what kills me. So I don't know if you watched the game on Sunday night, last night. So he's pitching against the Mets, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like, look, like I get it's a regular season game,
yeah. Hmm.
but he gives up a hit to lead off the 8th, and then he gets a couple outs.
Yeah.
And Curtis Granderson is a left-handed hitter. He's coming up, and I had watched the whole game because I was actually up playing cards at the casino,
Right.
so I'd watched every pitch. And he put together some pretty nice at bats, but at the end of the day, like he's still like a 220 hitter overall. So like whatever he is against Kershaw is probably lower.
Hmm.
Now Kershaw, I think he's at like 113 or 114. So like it's getting up there. But to me, it's like, well, then why like I would have understood if you would have just like yanked him and not even let him pitch the 8th. Like you're
Right.
gonna pull him now. So then, you know, it's 2 outs, runner on first. They put in a left-handed reliever. Granderson hit one off the wall. And it's like this is the type of thing that kills me. It's like so he doesn't get the win. The run is charged to him,
Hmm.
which like I get because he gave up the base runner, but like
Right.
I don't know, maybe this is getting too complex, but like if I'm a pitcher and I leave with a runner on first and 2 outs, and another pitcher lets that run score, Like that should be on him.
Is that really my fault? It should be like a half run.
Right. Like, you know, if you come in with the bases loaded and nobody out, then yeah, like that's obviously different. But like, you know, I don't think it's too much to say like to get one more out without giving up like him 3 more bases. But then the funny part is, so then the Dodgers rally and score in the 9th. So the guy that kind of blew it, like he gets
He
the
gets the
win.
win.
He
Yeah.
gets the win.
He gets his name in the paper
Gives up a
under
triple.
W.
Gives up a triple. Doesn't get the run credited to him, and then gets the W. Classic. I mean, so basically, like they should have either kept Kershaw in there or gone to Kenley Jansen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of the moral of the story. But and they lost today 2-0 to the Cubs, which was kind of weird because like I was thinking last night as I was driving home. So it was about 11 o'clock. Well, it was about 10 o'clock my time, and the game had ended about 45 minutes before. And like they're in New York, right? So I'm thinking like they're not even at the airport yet, probably. And they got a day game today in Chicago. So like that just kind of seems like bad scheduling. Like I wasn't in place to make a bet, but like yeah, like they're not winning. Like they're not winning because like what time are they getting into Chicago, right? Like that's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got 1 hit today. They got 1 hit today. So.
And then Chase Utley's still not making lots of friends in New York.
Yeah, he's actually been really good for them this year. Like I was super critical when they signed him because I kind of thought his career was over, but like maybe it was more just, like he didn't want to go through the rebuild or whatever. But like he's been, like, look, he's not an all-star, he's not an MVP, but like for being that old, like he's kind of held that top of the lineup together. So he came up with a bunch of big hits in New York, which was pretty great. So yeah, it just makes me feel old when I see guys like that who are old. I mean, it does.
He's got a lot of gray up there.
A lot of gray. That's like all.
A lot of gray.
Yeah, he doesn't have anything else. So yeah, he's been great. He's been great this year.
All right, man, we gotta go. I gotta go to bed, and so do you.
Oh, who are you taking Warriors in 6 as well, right?
Oh yeah.
All right, well, sounds good. So we'll catch up later on this week then.
All right, everyone. So thank you for listening. Once again, you can follow us on our Facebook page. It'll be Tilting Ground. You can follow me on Twitter at Greg2126. Eventually, at some point, we are going to get some intro music. This is happening. I'm determined. We don't want to break any laws, though. We don't want to steal anyone's material. So if anyone who's listening and wants to send us a fun track to play at the beginning of our podcast, we are happy to accept it. Until then, I'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, sounds good.
See ya.
Later.
Later.